Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
We seldom talk about our failures. Even if we do, we only talk about it after we are successful. Failing and rebooting from failure are an important part of starting up. To share their views about this sensitive yet important aspect of entrepreneurial life, we have our three esteemed guests with us. We at IIM Bangalore are super thrilled to host Mr. Sandeep Kochar, Mr. Yogendra Vasupal, and Mr. Nagaraja Prakash. Mr. Sandeep Kochar is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore and he has 18 plus years of corporate consulting experience and is a storyteller par excellence. He was awarded the title of LinkedIn Top Voices in 2019 for his innovative and transformative stories on LinkedIn. Moving towards achieving his dream of touching and transforming 5 billion lives by 2030, he founded Blue Minds Consulting. Having moved on from more than 5 startups, he has made it his mission to inspire others and to fight the fear of failure. Mr. Yogendra Vasupal is the founder of Stazilla. He began steadily changing the way home. Stazilla was founded with a laser sharp vision to become India's largest online marketplace for stays. Despite being immensely successful for over 10 years, he publicly admitted where they went wrong and why they should reboot in 2017, which makes him which makes him an hero in his own right. He is working currently with many startups, providing advice and mentorship from his experience in business and technology. Guiding us through this candid chat will be Mr. Nagaraja Prakasham or Naga sir, our mentor, who is an impact leader, a thought leader in the social impact space. His work has been covered by multiple media outlets, including Forbes. He is a resident mentor at IIM Bangalore's world-renowned incubator NSR Cell. We request our speakers to take the digital floor and share their insights with us. Thank you for joining us. May I also take the speaker's permission to record this session?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Sir, your audio is not coming through. Naga, sir?
Uh,
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Perfectly fine.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Yogi.
Over to you,
Great.
Naga, sir.
Thanks. Yes. Thanks, Harish, for the wonderful introduction, and salute to both Yogi and Sandeep and joining us bravely into this session, because we live in a country where the word failure is being considered as a big stigma, and nobody would like to come and talk about that widely, and which is also creating a kind of a problem with many of these entrepreneurs out there. You see only the success stories, fantastic stories that is coming out, but there is one success story. There is someone else, struggling, but we are not ready to read these kind of information, because we want sensational, great stories, so that as an aspirational, it's good with everywhere. You look at for one Rajinikanth, there is 100 other millions in the Kodambakam trying to become the Rajinikanth. Similar, like Shah Rukh Khan, you have millions in the Mumbai trying to figuring it out. So this is where I think we thought take this bold decision, where nobody want to talk about this word failure, and I'm very glad our student community has taken up on their ability to pull this together, because we've been talking for almost 6 months that we should talk about this widely, and as an institution like IAMB, we need to analyze and probably take this information forward to many others, so that who can benefit from there. Because I always tell people that people come and meet me, and we all talk about it. This entrepreneur is doing very well, but suddenly they will disappear from the social media, right, out of LinkedIn, and 2 years after that they just come up in LinkedIn as a product manager in some company. So why that is? We also had at NSR Cell, we are celebrating 20 years now, and we invited all our alumni, and the people showed up, all the one doing very well, right? So that's what we were telling, that we want to learn, we want to meet everybody. everybody who graduated out, they're our alumni, whether they're running a company today or not. But we want to hear from them as well. So this is a tendency that we tend to come out when we are feeling very good. But when we are down and we don't open up, we don't talk to people. So this is the time, when you are not feeling good and things are not going right, that's the time for reaching out. That is the time you communicate, talk to more people, identify who else is in the similar situation, how they came out it, so that you get the confidence. You don't have to shut the door and get in your room that come out after 1 year, 2 year that everybody forgot about. I think that is where these two gentlemen, and they're going to talk about it when they went through the challenges, and the whole country judged them, right? And they never bothered, and they just put on it and then march forward the journey. So what I think, as Harish mentioned, their bio is very well written. It's all out there in the public media that you can read about it. So what is available is between us, them, and you. So we're going to make it more interactive. Just jump into the point and just kill some of the stigma, and also ask some, probably touch upon a point which we not necessarily very comfortable talking in public. I had a chat with Sandeep and Yogi both, and they're very, very positive. They said that if our story can motivate, and we have 31,000 startup registered with Startup India. So it can motivate these 31,000 startups on a journey that never give up and don't bother about what is around you, what everyone's talking about is. Listen to what is here and just follow that. I think I'll probably start with Sandeep. Sandeep is our own proud alumni, and he did a PGSEM in 2007. And when I was reading his history and talking about his profile, he's always wanting change, right? 2007, peak of the IT career, and he came out and then went on multiple jobs. Coming out of the IT career, who have been 80 years in multiple jobs. 2015, it's a peak of India startup boom, and that bug bit him, and he started the journey with startup. So this first one he did with some beauty products, and he invested in a microfinance, his own money, and did not go very well. And he found a childhood friend. It's a very typical story, right? You find your childhood friend, your buddy, and you start a company, and that t-shirt company that did not that go very well. And then he started picking up two of their founders, and then went on doing something around the shoes, and that also did not go very well. There is quite a lot of learning. So I'm going to just pick on them in the first point. One is about from a comfort of a job and starting a entrepreneurship journey in 2015. So this is the one, when I do this Launchpad program at NSRCell, I'll ask people, are you a lifestyle entrepreneur or your lifetime entrepreneur? The lifestyle is that I read the newspaper today, the guy who had 3 arrears with me, but he raised $1 million selling idlis. What am I doing? I lost my sleep. Let me start a business plan. Let me become an entrepreneur. Let me also throw my fishing net on it and see what fish I'll get. So these are all very opportunity entrepreneur, lifestyle entrepreneur. For any small challenge, they'll give up. They use the word pivot and move around, stuff like that. And then there are lifetime entrepreneur. They pick up this journey and they never give up. Challenges are there everywhere, but they will give up. So I want to just pick that moment, Sandeep, that you did SEM, PGSEM, and then 8 years of job. 2015, the entrepreneurship bug bit you. And what was your thought process there? Is it that, hey, let me go try, see what happens? Or are you already convinced that, this is the journey that I want to take?
Thanks a lot, Naga. Very good morning and good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. So I think, after I'd worked for a while, and I think I started to really get little, I would say bored with also what I was doing, because, when you keep doing these jobs for many years, it just becomes very repetitive and monotonous. And I was in a leadership role, and you know how leadership roles are in corporates, right? They're all about PowerPoint presentations, and that's what it is. I started to question what am I doing and why. I always had this inherent nature to question things, and that is where I thought, okay, in the meantime, I just got one short assignment somebody gave me an assignment and I thought, hey, maybe this is a good time to quit. So I'd done a little bit of thinking through, but really I did not do too much of thinking, analysis, paralysis, because I think at that point I just thought that maybe I should take this as a message that this is time for me to kind of jump ship. And I did discuss with my family, and it was not a very welcome kind of response, because I don't have any entrepreneurs in my grandfather, my great grandfather, they were all working people. So there was that whole thing about and I was doing pretty well in what I was doing, so there was a lot of money coming in on the first of every month, which is really
Yes, absolutely.
very sometimes you start having that fear, right? So I did have those fears a little bit, but I had done a little bit planning, and I thought, okay, let me just give it give it a try. And I jumped into it more backing my instinct rather than my logical mind, because I think logic fails after a certain point. So that's how I kind of jumped into it.
Sure. Awesome. I think that's right. I think Professor Suresh at IIM has this course called Do Your Venture. And the thing is about, we tell people that get out of the building, just go and jump, right? If you think too much, I think you're going to miss out. So now the next part is about, you jumped in and you had invested your own money, right? And you, because you've saved hard-earned money in your venture, and you also picked up a person who trust your say childhood friend, and you found a co-founder, a very nice co-founder, and you started off it. And so that did not go very well. You mentioned that one of the co-founder were working in a job and two of you are working on this full time. So that did not go very well, right? When that moment, right, when that thing did not go very well, what was in your mind? That, hey, did I make a mistake? I've lost money, let me cut losses, I'll go back to job? Or what was that thought process?
So I had these two childhood friends who I had known for almost, I would say, maybe 30 odd years. And one of them was my best friend at school. So, it's like real childhood buddies. He had come out from his job, and basically he also didn't have much. And the other one was working, and he wanted to try his hand at entrepreneurship. So that's where we really started. But, somewhere in between, I kind of felt that maybe this will not work, because I just knew that, when you're not 100% into it, right? If you have your heart. So the one who was the first time entrepreneur, he also was having a lot of fears, because he was first time entrepreneur. Will it work? Will it not work? And the one who was in his job, he was more about, okay, for me, this is a side time hustle that I'm doing. So I will just do some stuff. If it works, then I'll quit and all of that. So, it was, in fact, my spouse kept telling me, what are you trying to do? so but I think somewhere I was doing it also for learning, because I also felt that I needed to learn the art of entrepreneurship. And though I had picked up this elective of entrepreneurship at IMB, I had taken it up, but you just you can't be prepared enough for it unless you go ahead and do it. So the first venture was really about, I was just trying to learn the art, and I think I just knew in my head that I needed to learn first. And I had given myself some time also. I was like little kind and saying that, okay, I have to learn it. Like, if, I mean, I spent so many years in working, and even in corporates, you take a few years to learn the art of how to run businesses, right? So I think I was pretty okay. But after the first, the first venture started to, on its way to failure. And that is when I realized that, I had wasted a lot of time, because one of them said very explicitly, look, we wasted so much time. And, sometimes when you also want to do something, but when the world starts telling you those things, then you start thinking, oh shit, maybe I made a mistake. That whole guilt starts coming in. And in the meanwhile, what had also happened was my family was not very I would say not very happy, in the sense that I was doing well and I quit my job, and what am I trying to do now? I mean, and you studied so much in your life, and you've studied an engineer MBA, and then after that, are you going to do these shoes and t-shirts? And so that whole mindset also starts to kind of kill that whole feeling of wanting to do something, right? So I think that is where I did start having self doubts also. The doubts started to become, they started as small seeds, but they became dinosaurs in the head, right? Who you're feeding every day, and you are also starting to, and then obviously those, as those first of every month goes, you start to look at what am I losing every month as money. So the opportunity cost just goes very high. The pressure does start to build up because you start to so the EMIs are going, and and slowly you are seeing that you're making no money. In fact, you are spending your savings. So it's just the other way around that you would want to think. I mean, you would want that, okay, money starts coming in and I make money. But entrepreneurship is very different. You first lose the money, then you learn it, then you start gaining. So you need to learn to walk and fail first, before you kind of start to run. So I think that was what I was going through that period.
So in that moment, I'm sure that, so far, right? So you are an engineer and you went to IIM, and so they have a nice halo, right? Our IIM students have this halo around us that, everybody respects you. And that first time in your life that hits you that, hey, there is something you picked up that did not go very well. That, as you mentioned, that you had the self-doubt as well, but that was also a big hit to your own personal ego, right? That, I'm this grad, so far in my life, I never failed, I switched jobs, I'm always in flying colors. But what is it? I'm just selling some t-shirt. I'm not good at selling this t-shirt. So what am I? That is one part, is about bringing your fear out within you. That is one part, right? The self-doubt point you mentioned. The second is about the society, right? So as long as you are doing very well, you are a hero. The moment you make one mistake, India, we are very good in giving advice. See, I told you so, right? Kya yaar, you had a cushy job. What is this startup thing? Look at you're not even fit for selling a t-shirt, right? So your friend circle and your street and your milkman, your maid, your in-laws, your family, everybody will become an advisor to you. So one is about your fighting your own insecurity, that the I that you built, and it was nurtured very well through the degrees and jobs and salaries, but that is hurt. And the second is about the guy, who even doesn't even talk to you. Now he's laughing at you. So there are two things that you're fighting. So how was that situation?
So I think the first thing that happened was that even my maid servant started asking ki bhaiya is not going to work. What has happened? Because I was working from home, and I didn't want to spend money, taking an office and doing all of that. So that also started to eat me up a little bit. I remember once my neighbor came and said, "What do you do? You sit at home the whole day, and what are you doing?" So I said, "I'm doing some stuff." "No, but what are you doing? I mean, are you earning money?" So I couldn't answer that question because I was not I mean, I'm losing money here. And you can't say it also, because if you say it, the person's going to laugh and say you're so stupid. So I think that bit was really, in some ways, it was terrifying. The other thing what I did was, initial part, I started distracting my mind by doing other things also. So I became a professor at a couple of schools, started teaching there. I started to other volunteer and try to pick up some side gigs or assignments. So I started to hustle, and that was my biggest mistake, because the moment you start hustling, there's no focus. And that is when you are divided amongst 10 things, and therefore you're only 10%. So that is when, so I actually gave into greed and fear, and I started to do that. And that was really, I think, my wife started to ask me. I said, "What are you trying to do here? You are just doing so many things, but what are you achieving out of this?" And she was very right, but I was not willing to see it because I was scared. I was scared that, what if I'm not going to be, I got a couple of assignments, some money started to come. So I gave into that greed and said, okay, at least I have a backup plan. And the moment you have a plan B or a C or a D, I think you've lost it. You've lost that game straight away.
Yeah, no, awesome. I think this is a very good point. So that's what I tell most of the time, as a mentor, and we also have a lot of mentors. So when I tell the mentor, this number one job for us, for me, is about helping this entrepreneur coming back on the focus, right? Razor sharp focus. We said you have 24 hours and one brain. And what do this 24 hours and one brain is thinking about you, and that's going to have an impact on whatever you're trying to do. I think you're reiterating the point about the razor sharp focus. I'll come back to you in a minute on the co-founder part of it. So let me go to Yogi. So 2005, right? And way back then he started Stazilla, and he pitched to us around 2011 or so. So a 5 to 6 year old company came to the Indian Angel Network pitch session, where the startup means that you started one year and you picked up something and you suddenly coming out. But 5 years in the journey, he has learned quite a lot. The first pitch was really awesome, and I was in the room. We all immediately called Yogi as the red bus of hotels, right? In 2011. So Yogi, the first one is about 2005. That means that just .com boom happened in 2000, and around the 2000, the intangible things in India started picking up. Means that you buy tickets, those things were picking up. Tangible thing it took 2015, where we are comfortable buy a TV on internet. But 2000 around the .com time, we are comfortable buying intangible things. Even then, 2005 you started, and 2011 you came out for the pitching. So one is about your journey the first time when you wanted to get into the internet, because that bust happened, the stock market crashed in the US. And around that time, this few years after you started launching this company. So what was your motivation, and how you started that early on? And then 5 years of journey, and you came for a pitching. So did you feel that 5 years also, we were torturing you with a lot of questions that you're a too old company for an angel investor to invest, and you missed the boat, and how you are going to make it? So can you just give us a thing about 2005? You started, you were very, very young. Was that young naiveness you jumped in, or was there as Sandeep was mentioning, let jump and figure out? Please, Yogi.
Thank you, Naga sir, and thank you to IIM for hosting us today. So yes, 2005, I was 22 years old. I just got married to my wife, and I looked around for what could be done. I would say in hindsight, one positive thing in my life was that I didn't have the trappings of a degree. I was a college dropout from a computer science engineering. I had not pursued education further. So, that pretty much rules out your a career kind of life where you put up your resume, go for interviews. And I had support from my family, at least intellectually and emotionally. My dad had told me when I was in 10th standard that you be whatever you want. You want to be a barber, be a barber, but be the best barber in town. So that's all. After that, I think he made a mistake saying that, because that it was after that I stopped taking school seriously. However, from 2000 onwards, I had started, I found this beautiful thing called the internet. I started learning programming languages and freelancing online. So by the time 2005 came, I was making money doing these kind of hustle and odd jobs, projects. But I wanted to do something, build something, that was more permanent. And then we looked at various industries, and you rightly pointed out, sir, it seemed like the services industry, the intangible, were the ones that seemed to be coming online first. And there was then a report by the Ministry of Statistics, the first travel tourism report of India from its independence, which pegged the hotel industry at 20,000 crores then. So it seemed like a big enough market. And in fact, when we incorporated, there was nobody in India. Even Make My Trip came 3 months afterwards into India. So it seemed like, everything, the opportunity was there, market is large enough, and we are riding a wave which is technology, and that never ceases. That's just going to keep coming, keep pushing the boundaries. Now, when I started in 2005, I didn't know that I was a startup. I didn't know that there is something called investors. I didn't know that there were angel investors, Series A, Series B. I mean, I'm some guy in Chennai who just had an idea and a computer and started up. I had no clue about all of these things. Literally, it took me 6 years to know that I can go in and seek investments. There was also maybe a little bit of mind block initially, that I don't want to give stakes. I don't want to give up control. I was young, I was naive, and that naivety helped me and hurt me. It helped me because I didn't realize what I was starting up, the gravity of it. So I just started up. But it also hurt me because I didn't know what are the best decisions that can be taken at that stage, what are the support that was available. Indian Angel Network was there before 2011, maybe 2-3 years before. If I had actively sought out funding, then I wouldn't be where I am today. So in 2011 till 2011, 2005 to 2011, I didn't run the company as a startup because I didn't know the concept of a startup. I ran it as a business. Cash flows, a monthly salary being paid, enough revenue. I had my margin at 20-25% because I had to fund myself. The business had to fund myself. And by the time we got to 2010 11, we started noticing that companies that had incorporated 6 months back were scaling up much faster than we were. On an annual basis we are growing 50% to 100%, and there are these companies that are doing 4x 5x growth in a single year and moving forward. So that hit me that, yeah, I knew one thing about the internet: it's a winner takes all market. You don't have second, third, fourth places. There's only the first place and a distant second. Okay, so that is from the experience of the dot-com bust. I was following companies like Amazon, Google, other companies from 2000. So I knew that that was a pattern in the internet, and I decided to let go of some of my mind blocks in terms of giving shares, control, ownership to others, and getting other investors and partners on board so that the business can have a better chance at succeeding. So that's when I started going. And 2011, the Indian Angel Network, I got to know. I sent in a deck randomly. I didn't expect anything to come out of it. In fact, I had done, I got 160 investors listed out and sent an email to all of them. And the Indian Angel Network responded fast. I was surprised within 2 days. And I think within 7 days, I was invited to pitch. And so two things about that first pitch. I do remember you, Ravi sir, Sharat Sharma sir, Amitabh, all of the thing that I think money was one thing, but the sort of questions that were asked, specifically, I remember this question. I forgot who came, but whether you want to build, whether you're a lifestyle entrepreneur or a lifetime entrepreneur was asked. I was like, what is that? Okay, so I was explained. So in a way, I decided that it's not just about funding. One thing that I had lacked was mentorship. I was just reading things online and trying to figure stuff out only on my own through trials and errors, which you need to do as an entrepreneur. But it doesn't make sense when you can get advice from people who are experienced in what they have done. So made my pitch. I was fortunate enough that investors there liked it and liked the concept. And that was when I raised my first investment after 6 years of running the business basis cash flow. You're muted, sir. I think the event organizer has, yeah.
Yeah, good. Sounds good. Yeah, great. I think and how was the feel that, this is the point what I was kind of telling about the student entrepreneurship as well, right? There is one, we have Sandeep, and who's coming into the space with a lot of knowledge and wisdom and jumping into entrepreneurship. And today, the class of 2020 is worried about what's going to happen and the next 2 years and 3 years, how this education system, we're going to get a job. So we are motivating more and more students to jump in to become an entrepreneur as well, because here's an opportunity. There are a lot of problems around for us to solve. I think you would motivate many of those kind of people out there today in the audience that, there is no age bar, there is no qualification required to become an entrepreneur, right? So you're able to identify a problem and you went on working on it as a child in coding on internet and stuff. You jumped in, and you had a fear that, am I eligible, right? Am I okay? Because even 2 days back, there is someone pitched to me and saying that I'm 37-year-old and I know how to run a business than this 20-year-olds raising all this money. I said, no, not at all, right? So for the entrepreneurship, as Sandeep mentioned earlier, it's an art. And at IIM or anywhere else, we are bringing tools, providing tools, but it helps you to an extent. But it's end of the day, it's an art, and that art can be picked up by anybody, right? As you rightly said, 22-year-old back in 2005 started the entrepreneurship journey, and you came in, you grew, and you're able to pick up an investment as well, and without understanding the concept of it. So I think that's the message to all of you, that, especially students out there, this is a great time, because don't worry about the future, my job opportunity, what will happen to my placement. Just pick a problem and start jumping in. I think there are opportunities. I'll go to Sandeep now, that this co-founder part, right? We often see that, many people come to us and they say that, I have these co-founders, I know him since the childhood, we are buddies, he knows all my secrets, and we have nothing that to hide. So that they start with that kind of a very comfort level, right? And you'll see that, 2 years down the line, and even in NSRCell, we have people coming in idea stage, and they don't even have a product ready, but they're fighting to each other. The co-founder fight starts, as well as they want to split. And in the last 6 months, I've done mediated 3 splits between the co-founder. So the one, the glass is broken, it's very tough to put it back. So I think you started with a nice set of friends, but even then you had to split. So how are you handling that split? And because one is about, that it is failing. The second is about taking that message with your friend circle, who are your friends and co-founders, and then politely are figuring out in a very nice manner, you came out of it and you started your next venture, right? Can you just give some examples of that? Because people take that as very emotional these days, and it is no longer about it is a business transaction, I'm making a decision. It is about, how can you do that to me? I've trusted you, the word, I trusted you, right? Without getting into a gentleman agreement, who owns how many stock and who is the CEO. Even then, like 1 year, 2-year-old companies to come to us, there's no CEO clarity. They think that we are all directors. I say, like, who, there is an argument, who's going to make a decision, right? So the failure and the co-founder issue, just can you just shed some light around that?
Yeah, so I think one of the mistakes that I made, I would say in some ways, is that I never thought of what if things will go wrong. You know,
Yeah.
now obviously we say that, okay, you should go with instinct and all of that, but what will really happen and transpire when things go wrong? And I also saw that once money becomes a challenge, right, in the business, money is not coming in. That's when all of these issues really start cropping up, because then everybody is starting to think of, hey, I'm putting in so much effort. Then people start finger pointing, and you are not doing your job well. And so we had one of the co-founders whose job was to get business, but he couldn't get business. So now we started finger pointing on that person, that look, because of you our business is not doing well. And then the other guy is saying, look, I am putting so much effort and wasting my time, but we're not doing anything, we're not making any money out of it. So I think also everybody's ass is on fire, because the time is really money. And here, right, people who have worked for 15, 20, 15 years, they have bills to pay. And that starts to really pressurize you mentally and otherwise. So I think that's one. The second part is, I think maybe sometimes it's better to have co-founders who are not linked to you in any way, because then it's a business relationship, and you are more comfortable saying upfront, because with founders, you also start hiding things, because you feel, okay, if I say something, this person will get hurt.
Yeah.
That's the other bit. So with strangers you can do better business. I mean, interestingly, after that, when I became an entrepreneur on my own also, I realized getting clients was easier through strangers than from people you knew, because people you know, they start to think, hey, I know this person, how can he add value? You start to get that whole mindset that this person can't add value because I know him, he's from my school, or he's my friend, a colleague. So I think business, I would say, it works better, in my opinion, when you are working with people you don't know. The other thing is I was working with one of the startups and he offered me a co-founder role also. And there was an interesting thing he said. He said, okay, we will do this. And there was an investor involved in it. So the investor was very, very, very wise, just like you. He had been there and seen many of this. So he said a very interesting thing. He said, we'll have a honeymoon period. So I did not understand what is that. So I said, what is that honeymoon period? He said, look, we'll all work together for 3 months. There is no commitment from any party. Now we see how it works. And after three, and we'll have a contract which says the same. And after 3 months, we'll come back and see, should we give you equity or not? Now, I felt that was a very, very good, interesting thing, because sometimes when you don't get it easily, you want it, right? That's the human tendency that, no, I want that stake now. Now I need to prove myself that I am a worthy co-founder or a founder, and I'll get that stake. And then, so I think that part also is something that maybe that initial period, if you can keep it as a cool off or a honeymoon period where you just work together, then it will be much better for everybody, right? The heartache is lesser.
Yeah. So now you came out of that three co-founder and you started another venture selling shoes. And there that you have a commitment, you had a some initial success, you're all pumped up, and then moving on. Then that also hit a roadblock, right? So I think that time, like if you look at your journey from 2015, you're already in your third venture, and third venture failed also miserably. You've tried all the combination with the co-founder, a new co-founder, 100%, 10%, all those combination you tried, still that failed, that venture, right? So what was your feel at that time? Coming back to the same question earlier, right? So that I got caught. The second is about the society is again, oh wow, I have another ammunition. Just start throwing at this guy, that the whole neighbor, your friend circle, and all of them will again will bombard on you, right? How did you manage that? That time, did you really feel that, okay, this is a time I want to go back to job? Or can I, no, this become my ego issue that I have to prove it to the world. I have to, be a successful in whatever I'm doing. So what was the mindset that 3 months that you went through? Yeah.
So by that time, I remember my parents and in-laws both had started saying, what are you doing? so it had gotten to that. You were so educated. What happened to you? You lost your way. And, I had no bad vices. So I don't have any bad vices. So they said, what is this new thing that you started? Now nothing's going right. And I remember one day my drawing room was full of these shoes, which I was sampling. And I was trying to put the tags on the shoes, and my wife tells me, what are you doing? What is this? So my son was also wondering, what is this guy doing? He's got this stuff that he's trying. Every day he picks up something new, tries to do something new, and that doesn't work. So I think there was that whole bit. Yes, the self-worth issues started to come in. I started to feel whether maybe am I good enough for this or not. And even while working, I used to have a lot of insecurities. So, entrepreneurship just amplifies every single weakness you have, right? It blows it up just like the virus is doing today. It just amplifies everything. And then you start to really look at yourself in the mirror and question every single bit. So I think entrepreneurship is also very spiritual in nature, because you are tested, your core character is tested. And I was really a very greedy MBA character. You know how MBAs are, right? They're basically greedy people who just want to make more and more money and want to buy more houses and cars. And that's what it is, right? All about. So I think my character was tested, and obviously I was very weak inside. So I think that started to really, in some ways, toughen me up. But then I also started to give in to my fears. So I started looking into job market also. I found a couple of job offers. I remember I got a job offer, and that was a pretty good job offer from one of the startups I had earlier consulted with them. They offered me. But then I again started questioning, then why did I do all of this for this last 1.5 years? Is this what I want to do really? And the answer was clearly no. It was just I was doing it for money. And there was no other reason. There was no other reason why I would do the similar job that I was doing for 1.5 years back. Why would I pick that up again? And I did get a few other opportunities also, but I started to say no. And, I have been a very greedy person in my life. So I never knew how to say no. So life really started to teach me that how you have to say no to things. And I would say that was my biggest learning through that whole journey of battling with my fears and, trying to do something. But the other thing that I realized is I tasted some bit of success, and also I had learned now by now, how does this whole thing work? The
Yes.
key I learned was to get customers, and which is why my businesses failed, because I couldn't get customers. The second was I needed a good team, which is why I was not having. I needed a good co-founder who could complement my skills. So I started to learn what was I doing wrong, and that gave me time. The other thing I started doing was, okay, can I give myself one more year? So that's the simple method I started following from, I would say, the first year onwards, only second year onwards. That can I just push for one more year? Because I knew the moment I'll think of can I push till success, I would just fade off, because I didn't have the resilience to do that. So I just started saying, okay, one more year. And by the end of the year, I would say, okay, I made some progress. Now can I go for one more year? And that's how I kind of moved.
I think this you touched on a very valid point. I want to tell all the entrepreneurs is about you define what success is, right? And there is always, if you compare yourself with someone else, you're always a failure. There is someone always doing better than you, whatever the parameter that you want to put, right? So that internally you need to feel that who am I, and what am I doing it for, and am I enjoying the journey? Like what Sandeep picked up that point is about. It is not the destination; it's the journey. If you're not enjoying the journey, and if every moment you're self-doubting, you're wondering that, wow, someone moved ahead, someone went behind. So this board of comparison. And if you start comparing yourself with someone else, you're always a failure. But if you do not compare that, us according to you, what your heart is saying, that as long as you're doing the right thing, that you don't need to compare yourself. You're always a successful person. In terms of the definition of someone else's definition, you may be failure. But that conviction in you, it is very, very important to overcome whatever they're trying to do. I'll give you one example. Today, money is success, is the criteria for success. Today, we have the richest person in the world, Bill Gates, right? And then, with all this money, he can buy a big island, live in a 7-star hotel all these years. But why is worrying about corona, right? Why is worrying about poor people in Bihar? Right? Why is want to eradicate polio in our country, right? So this is where that you need to look at. I mean, we are from the country where we have Buddhas and Gandhis. So if you put today here Bill Gates or Gandhi, who is successful, right? We are celebrating this guy 150th years anniversary, and he's sitting in every currency. We didn't have money, right? He died, he didn't have money, but he's there in every currency. But whereas here, there is the world's richest person. So who is successful, right? You have to define for yourself. But if you start following that I am comparing myself with someone else, someone raised this much money, someone had this many employees, each one is unique, right? We're all trying to die as a Xerox copy of somebody. So that conviction is what, what Sandeep was mentioning is about. He validated his self-worth, right? He got a job. So I think that's where people, we do that, right? So am I still, my ego is hurt. Am I still worth something? He tested these waters outside. He got a job offer. Now you feel good that, okay, hey, I'm still worth something. Yeah, that I've not lost everything. But he also had a conviction that what is this thing, right? I've started learning. I want to move ahead on this learning instead of going back, right? That thought around the enjoying the journey is what very, very important, for you to start looking at. I have this one women entrepreneur in our program. She was running this business for 13 years. So in terms of scalability and all that, I always ask her that, it is not scaling, you want to give up. You said, no, this is my karma. That's what I want to do. Doesn't matter whether I'm scaling or not. This is my life and I'm doing this much. I'm very happy about it. But I've tested myself whether I could build a scalable company. That's why I came to INSR. Now I realize that I may not be able to do it. So now I found who I am and what my capabilities are and what is making me happy. That is more important than what you want to achieve. So with that, I want to pick up Yogi. So 2011-12, we got funded. I think a new startup in the blog got funded. And thanks that, you've done an amazingly very good job. We called us painting the cities in pink, right? I remember the stays a pink color across the cities. And it's good for us, an investor. We got 18 to 23x in a very short time. We all got, some of the exit. You made us relatively rich. And what was your mindset that, okay, so here is somebody, a young person, there's a lot of money in my hand. And did you make you grounded, or did you make that? I remember, I want that, you want to tell me, but I remember coming to your office that you're still in that small apartment, that, there's no grade A facility, you're being that still the frugal person. But what was your mindset that now I got money and I'm in the top of the world and nobody can stop me? Did it give you that a feeling that I'm going to unleash everything? This is a learning. Otherwise, because many of the startups out there, they think is that money is the important thing. The moment I have money, I will scale. So that means that every company would scale, but not happen. Money is just one element. So what was your that process around that? In a very short time, you got the early funding and you're able to raise Series A, Series B in a very, very short time. And can you just tell us about that period?
Sure. So after the Indian Angel Network funding, we got funded by Matrix Partners Series A. And till then, as you had stated, we didn't have a management team except for the co-founders, me, my wife, and my college friend. And we had around maybe 75 employees. There was no mid-level management. So it was needed to put in a mid-level management. So, after we got funding, we invested some of our funding in that, setting up a second level of management, as well as obviously we're looking at continuing a scaling of 4x, 5x. And so we ended up spending a lot on marketing. In fact, marketing was one of our biggest expenses. Second was our employee cost. Now, in hindsight, is that the right way to scale a business? Would I do it again? I would say yes, I would do it again, because this is the internet, which is a winner takes all. You are going to get standardized and commoditized and get eaten by the guy who's going to become bigger. There is intrinsically in this business, doesn't matter whether you're selling hotel rooms or whether you're selling plasma screen TVs, there is an intrinsic network effect that is there. So given that, you need to be able to be the one that gets to the critical mass first. Now, where I think I probably would change the course of what I had done in that time period, if I have to look back, I would say that I would have made the middle management structure that we got in, I would have structured it differently. So I didn't have any experience, literally, having even worked under a leadership before. So it was all trial and error and a seat of the pants flying, just as and when a problem comes up, what looks the optimal solution at that point of time. So in hindsight, when I look back, I see that the responsibilities, accountability, and authority were not structurally consolidated into the I would say a single individual's hands. Somebody had responsibility for something else where the authority lied somewhere else. So there's a hodgepodge of the structure, which again took me 1-2 years to unwind and then change in a business. Investors were supportive, but I do think that I lost 1 or 2 years at that point of time. Plus, scaling by expending money, there are two ways in which that can be done. One is actual, marketing, where the other is discounting. Now, I think that our focus was on getting the budget hotel, so we didn't have to really discount. And our focus was on adding more and more homestays, which in itself is inherently cheaper than a star room hotel. So discounting was not that much of a big strategy for us. It was just pure and plain marketing, and that's why you saw the pink everywhere.
Yeah.
However, I think that if you're in a market where one of the competitors is taking discounting as a strategy, you need to take it seriously, because then the business itself changes to one that is fought on the basis of the strength of a balance sheet. The guy who has raised more capital will end up discounting everybody else. I think today that strategy is not favored by many investors, but in 2013 to 2016, you would remember that was pretty much the go-to strategy of all startups. And I'm not going to get into whether it's right or wrong. When you're in Rome, do what the Romans do. If you want to succeed, do it better than them. I think that's where I think I couldn't, I didn't factor in the need for. I raised money, but I didn't raise totally. I had raised around $25 million, but my competitors were sitting on balance sheets of $200 million, younger than me also. Okay, entrepreneurs. So I think that the speed with which I should have moved to keep raising the funding. We had investors at various stages who were willing to. The investors whom I said no to, after 9 months when I went, they said no to, because the ground scenarios had changed, right? So I think that it's a learning. At the end of the day, the learning goes personal. The learning goes towards strategy. It does give you learnings across various dimensions. But as Sandeep pointed out, the most important learning would always be the learning, personal learning. You understand what you are, because unless and until you get into battle, you're not going to understand what you are. And I try not to identify with my failures or my accomplishments now, just my efforts. And that I notice is becoming easier. Whenever I do something, it's just easier to do what I have done.
I think that takes a lot of courage, in that during that time. I think you took on and then say that I have to take a course correction. Right? I think that takes a lot of guts, because this is where, as a culture that in the country we have is about, one is about, to err is human. That has been everywhere. But in India, we don't accept that. Right? Nobody can make any mistake. You want every perfection, everything. The moment someone admits a mistake, we put a chapa and saying that he's useless. And forever, we'll keep remembering those mistakes. But even that time, it took a lot of courage for you to come and say that I would need a course correction, right? And so what was your, mindset during that time? Because in a country where we are and people are watching you, and you become the celebrity back then, raising that much money and all that at an young age, and the whole media, everybody's watching you. But I think you came out and boldly said, I think Harish mentioned that itself made you a hero, right? That, okay, I have to take a course correction. So just can you take that moment? Because these are all the things that we miss out, right? And as you write that, these are all coming to us, and we know that this is something wrong, but we're trying to cover up because we're under pressure. The pressure by someone else who think that I'm successful, but no, I made this mistake. So admitting the mistake, that's a very, very human, great value. And then once you know the problem, it's easy to fix. But if you're hiding the problem and or appearing that there is no problem, there is no way that we're going to fix it. So can you just tell that mindset, that what you thought about, you made and admit that I need a course correction, I need to make some changes. And you admitted that, you admitted publicly, and you told all the investors. Tell about the mindset.
Definitely. So I'll just take a moment to explain what problems I had identified. So obviously, some of the problems are personal. My own learning, my own speed was not good enough or fast enough when I am in an ecosystem with competitors who are today friends, okay, but then competitors. Who are moving faster than me in terms across consolidation. In 2016, GoIbibo and MakeMyTrip consolidated. We were actually speaking with one of them to merge with them. And I rejected the offer because it was 20% lesser than what I wanted. But I should have realized then that when no party speaks to only one company, they are generally speaking with multiple suitors. So either you be ready for a consolidated competitor, because that's inevitably happening, right? So that's another learning, to read how the market signs a little bit better. And so the other thing that I realized structurally was that, with respect to homestays, we were investing a lot in training the homestay host, creating the homestay host, selling the host, and on one side, and on the other side, again, spending a lot on driving demand to the marketplace. So I thought that this is it makes more sense for me to focus on the company's strength, which is creating and managing homestays. And I would rather that I would stop selling to consumers and start selling to my competitors who can potentially become my partners. That was the whole idea, so that I move to one leg behind in the supply chain and focus on that. That way, like Sandeep said, it's not just you need to find complementary co-founders. Sometimes in business you need to see how you can convert a competitor into a complementary partner. It might mean you might have to take a step back, but eventually the success is assured. So when I had looked at all this, I was like, okay, that's a whole I see a lot of companies in the same situation that I am. In 2016, it was a drought in funding environment. Valuations had dropped all across. And I for sure knew that there were a lot of entrepreneurs who were in similar situation to me, maybe not as exacerbated as I was in, but yes, definitely in a similar situation, looking to find what are the alternative paths, who had overexpended, who had made mistakes. And I looked around, trying to identify my own mistakes. I did look around, read around. I did find, because see, when you're planning for success, you don't look around to try and read about failures. But when you're faced with a failure, you're trying to look around and read about failures and like, okay, then that is when I noticed that there's a dearth of material on that, experiences. What is the thought process of an entrepreneur? What are the best steps to take? Why should, so I thought, okay, for me, it's sort of too late. Maybe 1-2 years back, such things could have helped me. But I thought, okay, that was actually the first public blog post that I put up, and it was one on the failures, right? So then I put it out, and I wanted to be as dispassionate as possible. Obviously, I had a great team. I also needed to ensure that the team was recognized for what all they had done individually and as a unit, and also where the mistakes were made. And you know I think I would say that provided relief to me, because I no longer had to pretend. I could actually get back to brass tacks to figure out what the heck needed to be done next. It sort of was like a big load was out. Yes, I am the CEO. Yes, I am the founder. Yes, the buck stops at my table. And yes, I screwed up. And these are the ways I've screwed up. These are the mistakes I've done. These are the things in hindsight I've learned, and I'll probably do things differently. And I wanted to also make it like, so that if an entrepreneur who wants to start up tomorrow does go through, they get an idea that, it's not just success. You got to deal with your failures also. And you need to be prepared, not plan for it. Obviously, there should not be a plan B, but 90% of startups do fail. That is pretty much what you're taking on as a risk. Enjoy it. As you said, it's the journey that's going to make you better, not the destination.
Absolutely. So that is very, very, at that time when you admitted, when you came out saying that I needed a course correction, and you mentioned that you no longer need to pretend. I think that's a very, very powerful message to everybody out there, is that why are we pretending that we are not? I think that's the point. Also earlier I mentioned about that, know yourself, that be okay with who you are, and you need to look at that, your unique capabilities, and be okay with who you are, because in your mind you should feel that I'm successful, because everybody have a definition of success. The example I gave earlier, Gandhi versus Gates, everybody have a different definition of success. If somebody is trying to put you in their box, right, and then you're always a failure. But in your box, you feel that you've done the right thing. But for that, we don't want to go to that Indian other philosophy. Just sit there and do an astrology and wait for that, roof open and somebody's going to put it down. Don't go to that extreme as well. But you put your effort, and then in your heart, and you feel that you've done the right thing, and you've not done anything that you feel that you don't need to worry about, think about. Because if you look at in our culture, right, the moment people pass 60, 65, everybody will become philosopher, right? Until then, they're bulldozing, they do everything in the name of that I want to be this, that, successful. But the time, when you get older and older, all the thing that you've done started haunting you. Then you started becoming philosophical. And in every religion, there is a thing that you go, probably just go to, take for in holy dip in Ganges, or in other religion, you go tell your priest that I've done a committed sin, please forgive me, over, right? So this is where I think this takes a very, very important feeling that as an entrepreneur, you need not be pretend who you are not. And if there is a mistake, admit, because the problem is clear, it's easy to solve it. You're not able to what the problem is, then you're fixing the wrong problem and you are in the wrong direction. I think that's a great message, Yogi, that you came out. And that time, I'm sure, you were under the pressure with many people. Again, the entire advisor, you have, unsolicited advisor that you get and say, people will take you and say that, why did you do that? No, we could have done it ourselves. And the pressure from everywhere else that people looked at you as a hero, and they all will come back and say that here is an opportunity to take a poke on you. So how did you manage that situation? Because one is you said I put it out the problem so that I start working on it. But the moment you admit that there are things that I'm going to fix it, then the people who are waiting for it, and they all will come around, start giving you an advice, right? How did you handle that pressure? Because that is where pushing us to not to admit any of these, right? We pretend that we are everything is hunky dory because we're afraid all of these guys going to bombard on me, right? So how did you manage that pressure?
So I actually did not think that post will even get noticed beyond maybe a small this thing. I did not. Okay. But yes, once that happened, and I was on the way, literally on the way to Delhi to sign some agreements for my reboot. Because if that had happened, I had my homestays. I had around 5,000 homestays who had agreed to participate in the reboot. I had my technology. I had all of that. I started with just one laptop. From my perspective, I was sitting on a much prettier position than 10 years back. Okay, I have all of these things today versus when I started up. So I'm looking at it at, again, another startup only, but within the same vehicle. So, however, that did not materialize because of some concerns that that were pre-existing with vendors. And I think that at that point of time, there were also no clear-cut laws in terms of what and how a company that is very close to insolvency but has assets, how it should reboot, what. I mean, the insolvency and bankruptcy code was just notified then. I don't think there was even the first sitting of any NCLT that had happened at that point of time. It looks like I've been a little bit ahead of the market right from when I started, even in my failures. So I didn't know how to handle. A lot of people did come up with various advices, I'm sure well-meaning, on what needed to be done. How to move forward. Even people, people are not that open for a public post. Also, they they did feel that it will make it more put the spotlight on the failure, and that then you get identified. Your idea gets identified. Your company gets identified with failure. But my thought process was, I started with nothing. I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have nothing. I just had my laptop and I knew how to program. I started with that and an idea. And what mattered to me was what I identified myself with. And I had identified myself with accomplishment till then, but that's when I learned you should not identify with accomplishment. Otherwise, you're forced to identify with your failures. So now I'm more economical. I mean, accomplishment, failure, that comes and goes. That has nothing to do with what you are or who you are. Ideas are meant to be killed. The ideas are meant to die. That's the trial and error that society has chosen as a way to progress ourselves. And one of the means of doing that is the limited liability company. Whole word itself, the limited liability company, explains why the company structure has been invented by us human beings. It is an art. You're not all art is going to succeed. Some are going to fail, but hopefully in their failures they can point the direction, make it a little bit more easier for others to succeed. So I didn't, even though I knew that I was risking getting identified with a failure, and those were all valid points. I had faith. I had faith in the society. I had faith. I knew that there were a lot of entrepreneurs who were going through what I am going through, but not able to vocalize it. And I knew that you know, in a way it will break that one small block on the road for many of the entrepreneurs to be able to explain, if not publicly, at least to people around, that yeah, you know, this is where we need to change course, we need to do something. So that was my thought process. And yes, after that also I got a lot of advice on why it should not be done. You made a mistake, you opened up yourself when you were at the most weakest. Otherwise the things that happened to you later wouldn't have happened. It is only because you opened up publicly, you invited people with whom you were having, you know, concerns, to step up and pick that weak moment. Yeah, maybe that's true. However, I think that scenario does not exist anymore with IBC. You being able to go voluntarily into insolvency with a plan for reboot, those structures which society needed to provide was not there. It's there now. And that's another good thing for entrepreneurs. I mean, they have an ecosystem that not only helps them succeed, there is an ecosystem now that also helps you when you fail. I mean, I see why. I see no reason for anyone to hesitate to start up unless and until it's personal. And the only thing that personal, I would say, is don't identify with your accomplishment. Don't identify with your failures. You'll be fine.
No, that's really awesome, because see, I always tell, you know, when an entrepreneur calls me, that tell your challenges, because all your accomplished good things, I'll learn it from your social media, right? That anything really you have done awesome, you put, hey, it's a fantastic. Nobody put that today I lost a deal, yeah, I feel awesome, right? Nobody puts that. But I think you broke that mold, right, back then, and saying that here is the, you know, course correction I need. Whatever I've done, I need to change. So you created that trend, and that also made the country today. The environment is, as you rightly said, it is now better for anybody who's growth. So it is always, it's very tough for the person to lay the road first. And I'm very glad, I think you did that. The road was laid. So today everybody can ride on the road very well. But I think you had the guts to come out and say that here is the thing, put it out. And, you know, even though that was personally or whatever, you went through that, but you've done a very big favor to the entire ecosystem. Now the road is very well laid for everybody who follows today. The systems are in a good place for you too, so that our people out there, I think that's the point for all of you, is about, it is awesome. You know, we all need that success to be positive and be proud about that as well. But we're all human end of the day. I'm sure that we have taken missteps. How do we probably identify that and try to take a necessary action faster? I think that really helps. I think hats off, Yogi, that what you've done back then.
Thank you, sir.
Ecosystem, and I'm glad you are coming back and telling that, bring the positive side of it, right? I think that's where I was telling people about. We can always go back and close your door and then worry, oh, what have I done, right? But How do we bring the positive thing in every part of it? Are you looking at half the glass empty or of the glass full? I think that's where I'm very glad that Yogi has come out sharing this part for all the entrepreneurs out there to think that point. So let me come to Sandeep right now, that he has his co-founders and handled, and at that the third venture failed, and he managed to look at a job opportunity, and he got validated, but his conviction is stronger now that I want to be an entrepreneur. I think he used the word that I've started enjoying the journey. That is one. The second is that he started saying that in the current venture, and he found a best co-founder. That's I will ask him to tell that. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I think it had been almost a year and a half by then since I quit my job, and that's when I started to again think, okay, what should I do next? So luckily at that time, my other co-founder, who's also my wife now, she also got frustrated with her job. So one day she just came to me and said that, look, I'm also planning to quit. So I asked, "Are you sure?" Because that's the other thing. Because then now in a monetary kind of a thing, right? You start thinking, okay, now it'll become even tougher for us because there is no pressure on you. But the good part is I was struggling, I think so, in a couple of areas. One was obviously the human dimension, right? It's very important when you're building teams. You have somebody who is able to really look at that part of the story as well. So complementary skill sets are very important is what I realized. The other thing is I also started realizing that you can't be a lone ranger in entrepreneurship, and some people can. I mean, maybe some people are very very strong willed inside, but I feel that that's where you start to lose hope also. So it's always nice to have some fellow traveler in the journey because you don't feel the only stupid person in the room who's trying to break the break the mountain, and then you feel stupid and everybody's laughing at you. At least you have one person more who's being who's there, and then you can share something. So I think that was very important, and that's where I kind of started that journey and said, okay, now let me try to do something more different from what I was doing earlier. Now some of the things that had worked out had given me a little bit of confidence also, that look, I have learned now many things. And how I validated that was I would go and meet new entrepreneurs. So when I would meet them, I would realize, hey, I have moved, because I was a little bit more mature after the failures and I have moved, whereas they are already thinking there. And then I would also go back and meet my old colleagues. And I would then wonder, they are still there, right? The way I used to think when I was with them, they are still thinking that way. So that really gave me a lot of hope that, look, I am moving. And later I realized, and I think Yogendra pointed out so beautifully, I later realized that the speed at which the venture grows is directly proportionate to the speed at which the entrepreneur grows. And that was my biggest learning, because if you can't grow fast enough, your venture is not going to succeed. And by that time I had started to learn how to learn, because you don't learn how to learn through all these corporate jobs. The other realization was also that corporate jobs don't prepare you for entrepreneurship, because they have everything there. There's an office, there is a setup, there is somebody paying salaries, there's somebody getting business, everything is set up. Now you don't know, I mean, you don't know how to get the business. That's a basic thing you don't know. And then the other thing I think I lacked was, I was a techie, so I lacked marketing and sales. uh, and I tried selling, but I don't think I was very good at it. So I had to now think of an alternative way. How do I sell better? And so all of these things happened, and then we started off this consulting firm, and we thought, okay, the other bit was, okay, should we do something which is little, larger in the real good, right? Social good also, because now that I've tried these materialistic things a little bit, it's not working. Uh, Another realization was that entrepreneurship is the intersection of materialism and spiritualism. So it's that
Yeah.
funny intersection where you have to be materialistic, yet you have to be spiritual, right? So that was another realization of the willingness to let go, sometimes, and then also how can you move a little faster in your own self growth journey. I think some of these things. The other is that by this time, I think 20 years, I've worked with 8 startups till now. And out of the 8, 2 had only survived, and one was the one I was going to start. so, so that is, I think that was also another learning, that it is tough. And also, ours was a service business, so it's all been bootstrapped now. And I did not know how to build a product business. I had no clue. So I did not know. So I said, okay, let me try the service business, and maybe one day I will build a product business out of the service business. And that's what's happening right now. But I think that is from the beginning, we started off that. Then while we began the journey, I started to think of, okay, I used to always love to kind of write. So that is something, again, I started thinking, okay, what is it that I really want to do? And that's when I started writing. And that writing, the first thing I did was I started putting my failures on my LinkedIn profile. I just put it there so that, because I used to see these amazing profiles and used to meet these entrepreneurs. And when I used to speak to them, they were all insecure within, but they wouldn't talk about this insecurity anywhere. So that I felt was a big gap, and they're actually fooling the world. Basically, they are selling those dreams. Is that American dream you're trying to sell? But basically, you are a failure, and you're trying to sell that American dream to somebody else, right? And then you're luring people that come, you're going to do really well. So I think I started to understand that part, and I said, okay, let me at least start to contribute to this ecosystem by making a small start and putting out my failure stories there. So that's where the journey started, and that became, I mean, one day somebody called me a storyteller in one of the comments, and that's how I became a storyteller. And I realized that, wow, there is an alternative to sales, and you can get audiences through organic. And later somebody told me this is organic content marketing. So I think the other learning was that these jargons that we put out, right? I think you can discover some of these things on your own also. You don't need to start them out as a process or a thing that, okay, this is what you need to do. So I think those were some of the learnings, and by which time I also had realized that, now I just need to walk the talk.
Yeah.
And that's very tough. I'll just share one more small thing before I kind of close. But I met an entrepreneur during this journey who had been an entrepreneur for around 30 years. And he had done these multiple businesses over these 30 years. Every 4-5 years, he would do one more business. And I asked him, I said, what is the success of your, the fact that you've survived so long? And he was around 60 odd years of age. And he told me, Sandeep, the success to business is staying in business. And you will be surprised. When I had started my journey, I had called all my connections for business. And obviously, right, nobody responded. I got a call after 2 years from a person I had called, 2 years back. And he told me, are you still doing what you were doing? And that's when I realized that, that I need to stick it out now. So that's when the journey really started. And I realized that I just can't keep hopping things and just closing and opening them down. And I need to go through that, it is that rigor you need to go through. There is no shortcut. And I remember my Form 16 in that year was less than my first salary ever. So, and also the money is going out, so that, I also began to realize that I cannot put my self-worth to, a price tag. And that is when I think I shifted in the head, and I also shifted in the heart. And, I started to believe that this is what it's meant to be. And then the other thing I also felt was that we get these messages all the time from the market, from people around you. You just have to learn from those messages and see what are they trying to tell you. So, sometimes they will give you so deep insights that you'll know, okay, what should your next step be?
Understood. Awesome. I'll just stop here. That's very good, valid point, Sandeep. Also, I want to open up for questions. If you have any questions, please put it on the chat box. We can take that up as well. So with that, I think, Sandeep, I think the learning is about, when the home front is quiet, I think we can do a lot of things. So you've done a very wise things about, your wife being very supportive. now that she joined the journey with you to understand. And the second thing, what you mentioned about that, you started reaching out a lot of people, talking to startup. Same point Yogi also started mentioning, right? When you started going through this process, there is no material out there for you to go understand, okay, I'm in the situation, what we need to do. So the talking, reaching out to more people, and that energized, that's what he mentioned, that energized to stay on the journey, and also to overcome the other pressure from your, the maids and milkman coming and advising what you're trying to do. So you're trying to stay busy with being active, and there is enough wisdom in you that you are able to help a lot of other startups as well. I think you've done a wonderful stop about talking about failure that become your business today. I think this is, I think you have done, both of you have done a great service to the whole society. This bringing the myths down around, the stigma down around the word failure, and now it could be celebrated, right? I think Yogi, when he put out the message, I think there was a lot of pressure, but today it helped the entire country to change the system. That I think Yogi was telling me that the system today is really, really awesome, fantastic today for people to go through whatever the changes, challenges they're going through. Similarly, you opened up for people to start talking about what I've done. That's where the learning comes, right? People will connect with a similar problem that they're having. They will, you can start sharing with each other. So with that, I'll go to Yogi. Now, one is about that the reboot plan derailed, and then you got through all the challenges. But now, and you are providing this wisdom back to a lot of these startups, and they are spending time with you. And you mentioned that what people looked at in 2017, your neighbors and all the surroundings. Today, they're looking at you different, right? Can you also tell that change? It is about, I tell startups and everybody all the time, is that don't change who you are based on who is on the other side of the table. At some point, they will get used to it, right? So this is where I think you used the word earlier that I don't need to pretend anymore. I am who I am today. Same Sandeep also reiterating the point. And first time when you go tell that who I am, and people are going to get shocked, right? And what are you trying to do? But slowly they get used to that. So what is your, your system around you, how they are accepting, what have you done, what they've looked at in 2017, what they're looking at today. So can you tell that transition, that how that transition, how you're able to stay focused on, because there are many people, get into all kind of things, right? Their self-doubt become into depression. And today we are seeing the crisis of a century, and everything is questioned. And there are 2-3 things that I was telling, even Sandeep was telling, is about more collaboration is required. And you also mentioned earlier that instead of in a trying times, can 2-3 of you come together and solve a problem? I think that's what happened, consolidation, right? So people should be open enough to look at what is best for you to handle the crisis today, what we call pivot to adapt, or you repurpose your skill, or you collaborate. I've seen one of my startups, Aki fired 2 companies, a struggling company, Aki fired 2 companies together. Now they're growing 400%. So I think this is where this crisis time that all the startups out there is about, be open and then start telling your challenges so that you'll find like-minded people to come and help you and work together, and the potential is that one part. But now is about the transition, how you are able to change your surroundings. The surroundings that was telling you that you did wrong, why you, lack of better word, voluntarily invited problems, right? And people have told you, you could have done it in quietly, all these things. And now you put it out that everybody knows all these problems. And then everybody who you thought would be a friend started advising against what you thought. But you never listened to all of them, and you stood by what you did. Today, you're feeling very good, as you rightly said, as a transformed person, and you send a good message that if you're enjoying your accomplishments, be ready to accept your failures as well, right? But if you don't attach both to yourself, you're not going to get hurt, right? So the moment the accomplishment gives you pride, but somewhere there is small failures will hurt your pride, then you may get into depression, right? I think this is where this current time, and we are seeing that more and more people leading, well-being, the mental well-being is very, very important. Can you tell that phase, how you transform, how your surroundings is now looking at you?
So see, transformed is the right word to use, because the viewpoints that I hold currently were not what I held in 2017. Somewhere along the way in the last 2 years, uh, maybe not depression, but definitely self doubts, worries, tensions. There have been many a days where I've had to quietly and alone introspect on what could have been done. And but I realized at the end of it, I just need to accept and move on. That's all. And what was holding me back from accepting was my own identification with the failure, not with the effort. I mean, I had a great journey. I had great support. I had great investors. There's so many positive things in the last 10 years. Yes, it didn't materialize as a success as I wanted it. But then there's so many learnings. And I look at it as a video game. Yeah, at the 10th level, you get knocked off. You don't, even if you have to start at level 0, you know how to get to level 10. The basics of that does not change, even whether it is a business starting up, speaking, selling, prospecting. I know more now than I knew when I started up. So when I looked at from that perspective, I realized that it was only my own perspective that was holding me back, because I was identifying with the outcome, not with the efforts. And once I started identifying, I think I was able to move on and start working and adding value with other startups, because organically itself people were approaching me who were facing these kind of situations, in terms of they were closer to a reboot, they were closer to hitting the wall, what needed to be done. They'll approach on LinkedIn or Twitter or sometimes even Facebook. So I used to take the time out, and I felt I owed it to the ecosystem. The ecosystem came up so vocally in support. They stood up, and I thought this was my way of contributing something while I was trying to figure out what I was, who I was, you know. So that, I think the transformation does take time. You can't rush it. You have to give yourself time for that. You don't have to give yourself time to enjoy success, but you definitely have to give time to introspect on failures, not because the learnings from what you did, what you didn't do, not from that, from what you are, essentially, and what you can change in yourself to be better. And like I said, there's a whole host of positive. I don't think that there are many entrepreneurs or many people who have experienced what I've experienced, from 22 starting something up from scratch, going forward, working with great people, having great investors on board, relationships, so many different things, right? And I'm thankful for that. And I think that I decided at some point, I don't know when, but at some point, it was gradual, the transformation, wherein I started focusing, and I almost now completely, except for the learning experience, don't identify with the failure, but neither do I identify with the accomplishment, to be even handed. Now, how that affected people around me, it was a difficult time for people around me also, because it was a difficult time for me. See, when you are not sure, when you are not mentally sure, when your perspectives itself are clouded, others around you, whether it be family, neighbors, they will support you, but even they are not sure what is the right way to support you. How do I, you need to, but once the perspectives, once you have accepted, once you have moved on, I found a whole lot of support at all times. My family supported me in terms of understanding the problems that I was going through. Even neighbors, others. I've been in the same place from 1989, so I know these people around me. I'm not in a locality where I don't know who my neighbors are. I've known them before for last 20 years. So I've played with them for the last 20 years, right? So I think that people are generally more accepting and open now to failures. And that's something which uh, surprisingly a lot of my neighbors, when we end up speaking, it's always about ideas that they have, how they want to move forward. It's like, it's not about failure. They want to start something up, they want to do something, they want to try something out new, and they trust and believe that, okay, I might be the right guy to speak about it, because I know the other side of it also. It is not just about the success side. So I say that it's, at the end of the day, it's all how you take it. Okay. And how you take it when you start up, how you take it when you succeed, how you take it when you face any roadblocks or failures. Nothing is permanent. Vehicles change, companies change, ideas change, but what you are will always be more permanent. And focus on that. You should definitely build great companies.
Sure. Awesome. Great. No, fantastic. That's a great message, Yogi, about. So I have one question. Harish, you want to put it up in the chat?
No, sir. So the question is, I think for Sandeep sir. I mean, recently, he wrote a post on LinkedIn about how people talk about failures after they become successful, and not necessarily while they are going through the challenge. I mean, the audience, I think, wants you to elaborate on that point and how that particular aspect of sharing your failure should come out.
Sure. Perfect.
So yeah, I think for me, really, I started writing because I felt that maybe it's a healing for me also. Because sometimes when you go through, you need an outlet, and what better outlet than to, as like Yugandhar put it out. So I also do that regularly, and I basically talk about where I go wrong. So that I think a lot of people identify with, and a lot of people learn through that, and also it opens up several channels to speak with other people and collaborate as well. So I think realism is definitely missing in the world. And in terms of, can we all be genuine and authentic? Authenticity is very rare. So that's what kind of that's how I had written that post also, that that is it really necessary that we have to have that, okay, the person at the end, it was a happy ending. So therefore you need to kind of only tell that story. So in fact, Bollywood stories have also changed now. They're all they have also changed their story narratives. So I think stories really trigger thoughts, and we make us think that, okay, and interestingly, everybody is going. I was coaching an entrepreneur who's like Series C funded entrepreneur, celebrated entrepreneur. And when I was coaching him, I realized that he is going through his own struggles. So it is not that the ones who have made it are so happy, because they are now fighting to go to the next level, and they're also struggling to hold on to what they have. So it's a struggle for every single person, irrespective of where that person is in that whole hierarchy, or Maslow's hierarchy, as we may call it. But so I think that we all need to come out, and we need to openly share what's really happening inside us, and that really opens up and makes people believe that it's possible. Because sometimes we feel that only we made it because we were extraordinary, but that's not the case actually, right? It's essentially, it is that we all make those mistakes. Now some people make just more mistakes, and therefore they become successful. And some people learn faster from their mistakes, and I think that's what the key is. So yeah, I mean, I wrote that post just to break that myth that that only when we become successful should we kind of tom our story. I think that is very narrow in the thinking then.
No, absolutely. That's really awesome. I think this is where we were also thinking that this conference, we want to have this session, right? And every conference I go, this question will come about how did you overcome the failure? I said, don't ask me the question, right? And as a kind of culture in our country, that we don't search for people who feel that is failure and ask them to talk. You don't want to listen to them, and that's why they're also not opening, right? So this is where we want to change this myth. I think we've kicked off this session with this with both of you, and we will continue. That's the message to all you out there as well. That as Yogi mentioned, that a lot of people reaching out to Yogi or Sandeep for this problem. We want you to come to these sessions. We would love to have continue the sessions further with NSR Cell. So there is going to be a lot of learning for other entrepreneurs, which is not written in a popular media, or there's not book is written about it. And as Sandeep mentioned, today a lot of books written around the corporate about managing, right? So that's why in NSRSL we have this concept called effectuation by Professor Saras. So for a corporate entrepreneur, it's about you write a project plan, you ask for a resource, when you get it, you start the project. For entrepreneur, you just open the fridge and then whatever is available, you start cooking. Because you're not going to write a plan and somebody's going to fund you to cook that, whatever you want to cook. I think that is where I think there's more material need to come. I would love to have both Sandeep and Yogi to become mentor at NSRCell. I've already connected with the professor. We would like to analyze this a little more deeper as well, so that there is enough material out there available for people, as well as Sandeep mentioned, that start sharing your problems as well, so that people can start connecting with you, or identify people like yours, this Yogi or Sandeep, for you to reach out. That is the purpose of this session as well, that if you not want to still go public and you have an opportunity to come here. Now, one last point, and then I'll ask for a closing remark, right? So my father was an entrepreneur, right? And he was one of those failure, and he had around probably 10 different things done, right? Every year he will work on some other new ideas and start working on it. And by the time, we were growing up, we have not seen a success, right? So that had a deeper impact in us, right? About the word entrepreneurship. It took me a lot of effort to come out of that state. So as an entrepreneur, you've gone through this. What is the message to the younger generation as well as your own children? Would you say that, no, get a job, settle, don't go through all this crazy thing that I've done? Or you'll say that, no, 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 no. So my thing should be a lesson. Because for us, we got scared, right? Our father never told that, no, don't worry, that my problem, but you can do whatever you want. But that put us in a very comfort zone, that, every time that anything that I'm trying to do different, that keep on haunting. So what is the message to first is about the lot of students out there and the younger generation out there, your own children? What is the message you would say that this is worth, or you say that, no, settle down, what we call in India, this word settling down, right? Once you settle down, you can experiment on this. What's your thought, Yogi?
Sandeep, okay, me, okay. So, children do learn from the experience of their parents, and it can be enlightening, or it can be a scar which they carry subconsciously. I'm confident my kids will look at entrepreneurship as an option. The choice is theirs. It's not an. The reason is I'm here. I'm happy, and so whatever is the worst that can happen has happened. It's not right. So I would that's pretty much what I would tell the next generation also. If you want to do something, assume what is the worst that can happen to you, and assume it has happened. Now you're freed. Go ahead and do what you want. There's nothing worse that can happen than what you think is the worst that can happen to you. Okay, you just need to figure that out, whether it is name, whether it is not having the confidence of having a monthly paycheck. Obviously life realities are there. You got to plan it around. Even for cooking from the fridge, when you take out items, you need to know what you need to put first, how long you need to, you need to have some sort of a plan. But don't let your fears stop you from starting up, because at the end of it, the journey is going to make you a far better individual at a far lesser time than you would in any other path, any other course in life, or except for a battlefield.
Yes, great. Sandeep?
So I think for people who are starting off in life, I think the first step could be working in a startup. you kind of go and at least go and experience what's really happening there. And I feel that if you work in a startup for even 6 months, you learn much more than what you learn for a few years in a large firm. And there you start to observe and see what are they doing and why. And that's how I learned the whole journey, is basically looking at, okay, what do they really do in this business, right? I mean, in MBA, what's taught and what's really reality is very different, right? I think that's one part. And the second part is that, eventually, if you will start something early, I think you have a head start. Though there is a risk that, if you fail, it'll be difficult for you and all of that, because you've not got that experience and expertise. But the ones who are doing it earlier, I know there's this whole theory around that entrepreneurs should become entrepreneurs after 40 or whatever, right? So, but I think, with the new generation, they will do much better if they can work for a couple of years and then just go off on their own journey. And I've seen several entrepreneurs do that and they fail. I mean, they make these mistakes. The other day, I met up with an entrepreneur, and he told me that in three years, he built up a gaming company. On this, he built up a gaming company on the product side and all of that. First, he had a service business, and then he started to go towards the product side. And then eventually, all of them decided that they'll move to the product completely, and that's when he went bust. So I asked him this question. I said, why did you not pursue your service business along with it? And you could have. He says, that's the mistake I did. And he was 26, 27. But he built a business which was giving him 1.5 crores of revenue. I mean, that is fantastic, that kind of experience. Now, when we do leadership hiring, we run a business for leadership hiring for startups. Basically, all the founders who come to me for hiring, they say, we want a failed entrepreneur. That's the job description given, that, we want you to find a failed entrepreneur. So really, failed entrepreneurs, the value has increased now. I just had a very, very large tech firm getting into ed tech recently, and they're looking for a leadership position. They said, we want a 30-year-old willing to give as much money as the person wants. Ideally, person should have failed once.
Yes, excellent.
So
Very
that's
nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Super. I think that's the message. I think that tells you clearly a failed entrepreneur is, worth like 15, 20 years of experience, like what Yogi mentioned, and same Sandeep as well. I think thank you very much. Any closing remark that I have not asked that you want to just share to the team, and then we'll wrap this up. You want to go, Sandeep? Any closing remarks that you want?
I think just one on mental depression. I think Yogendra touched upon it. I've gone through a few bouts of depression also. So I will only say that you've got to surround yourself with people who will take your mind off some of these things. You need to keep yourself busy and start working on your mind as well, because I think the game is really here, right? It's not anywhere else. It's in the mind. If you can control your mind, you can do anything. So I think that's one part.
It's very powerful. Excellent. Yogi?
I'd like to thank everyone for their patience and allowing us to share our stories again. I would say that whoever is looking to start up, I'm assuming that the participants who are watching this are interested not in the business or corporate. They are interested in startup, if not now, at some point in your life. And I hope that we have been able to, provide the motivation, if not remove your mental blocks, to start that up. Okay. And as Sandeep said, you will go through a tough time mentally, 100%. You don't have to be a failure to go through it. You are taking that up. When you start up, you are taking that up. Surround yourself. I was fortunate to have had already 2 kids by then, who literally helped me bounce back. So if that's possible, do have kids also. And don't forget family for business, because family is the one that really holds you up and lets you bounce back faster and better. Because without that support, I think you cannot pick yourself up. Nobody can. Okay, that's my only advice. Might not be related to business, but yes.
No, absolutely. It's all, I think in entrepreneurship, it's all everything intertwined, right? Awesome. Great. Salute to all of you. I think
Can I just add one last thing? Yogendra, was a pleasure hearing your story. And recently, my son asked me this question: Dad, what's the valuation of your startup? And he's 12 years old and he watches Shark Tank.
Okay.
That's his favorite one. So, and he's telling, why are you not looking for an investor? So I think the new generation is going to be amazing. I feel,
Absolutely.
that's really good. And thanks, Yogendra, was a pleasure.
My pleasure too, Sandeep. Really my pleasure. Thank you.
So thanks, Sandeep. Thank Yogi. And it
Just
takes a lot
one
of guts
second.
to come and talk about all these personal stories. I think that's what we need. That's what the country needs. I think you started laying the road for it. I'm sure there's more such stories comes. Probably in the next 10 years, we have to remove the stigma that, I've become a failure. I'll delete my LinkedIn account. I'll appear 2 years after. Rather, we just start talking about it so that let's start celebrate. If you fail, call yourself as a serial entrepreneur, right? And don't just say that I'm a failure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done one. I'm on it by next one or whatever, right? So that's the attitude. I think that's what we want to achieve through this session. I'm sure both of you done an amazing job about sending that message. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Take
Sir,
care.
one second. As a token of appreciation from IIM Bangalore's Eximius team, a donation has been made in the name of Sandeep sir, Yogi sir, and Naga sir to SOS Children's Villages of India. This non-profit organization is engaged in outstanding work ensuring holistic development of orphans. We thank you for gracing the first digital avatar of Eximius and look forward to the opportunity of hosting you again in the future. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Good job, students. I think finally it took our IMB students to take on failures. I think great job. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.